Maya wiped down the counter for the third time that morning, her hands moving in circles while her mind wandered somewhere else. The breakfast rush at Tony's diner was finally over, and now she had a few minutes to breathe before the lunch crowd arrived. She could hear them whispering again. 2 women at table 6 were stealing glances at her while they sipped their coffee. Maya didn't need to hear their exact words to know what they were talking about. In a town of just 8,000 people, everyone knew everyone else's business. And Maya's business always seemed more interesting to discuss than anyone else's. "She's pretty, I'll give her that," one of the women said, loud enough for Maya to catch. "But you know what they say about her." Maya's grip tightened on the cleaning cloth. She'd heard it all before. The whispers, the assumptions, the cruel nickname that followed her around like a stray dog. They called her a bed warmer because she'd had a few relationships that didn't work out. In their small minds, that was enough to define her entire existence. The truth was far more complicated than what these people chose to see. 3 years ago, when Maya was just 21, her world had turned upside down. Her parents were killed in a car accident during a winter storm, leaving her to care for her 2 younger siblings. Amy was 13 then, just starting high school, and dealing with typical teenage problems. Tom was only 11, still needing help with homework and someone to pack his lunch every morning. Maya had been studying early childhood education at the community college, dreaming of becoming a teacher. Someday, she loved working with kids and had always imagined herself in a classroom, helping young minds grow and learn. But dreams don't pay bills or put food on the table. The insurance money from her parents' accident was barely enough to keep their small house. Maya had to make a choice that no young person should have to make. She dropped out of college, said goodbye to her dreams, and took whatever job she could find to support her family. Working at the diner wasn't glamorous, but it paid decent money, especially with tips. Maya worked the morning shift and often stayed late to cover for other waitresses. Some nights she'd come home so tired that she'd fall asleep on the couch still wearing her uniform. But the people in town didn't see that side of her story. They didn't see her helping Tom with his math homework at midnight or driving Amy to her part-time job at the grocery store. They didn't know about the times Maya went without lunch so her siblings could have better school supplies or new clothes that fit properly. What they did see were her few attempts at dating. Maya was human after all. She got lonely sometimes. She wanted companionship, someone to talk to about adult things, someone who might understand the weight she carried on her shoulders every day. But the men she met always seemed to want the same thing. They'd take her out once or twice, be charming and sweet, make her laugh and forget her troubles for a few hours. But then, when she'd open up about her responsibilities, about Amy and Tom, about her dreams of maybe going back to school someday, their interest would fade faster than morning mist. They wanted fun Maya, pretty Maya, the one who could make them feel good about themselves. They didn't want real Maya, the one with bills to pay and teenagers to raise and dreams that had been put on hold indefinitely. The worst part was how these brief relationships ended up defining her in everyone else's eyes. 3 failed relationships. In 2 years, and suddenly she was the town's favorite topic of gossip. People loved to whisper about how she threw herself at men, how she was that type of girl, how she'd never amount to anything more than what she was right now. Maya knew. The whispers weren't entirely fair, but sometimes late at night when the house was quiet and Amy and Tom were asleep, she wondered if maybe they were a little bit right. Maybe she was looking for love in all the wrong places. Maybe she was trying to fill some emptiness inside, herself with relationships that were never going to last. The bell above the diner door chimed, pulling Maya from her thoughts. She looked up to see Mrs. Peterson, her elderly neighbor, shuffling in with her walker. Maya smiled genuinely for the first time that day. "Good morning, Mrs. Peterson. Your usual spot?" The old woman nodded and made her way to the corner booth she always chose. "You're looking tired again, dear. Are you taking care of yourself?" It was a simple question, but it hit Maya harder than she expected. When was the last time someone had asked her that? When was the last time anyone had worried about her well-being instead of judging her choices? "I'm fine," Maya said automatically, though she wasn't sure she believed it herself. Mrs. Peterson studied her with kind, knowing eyes. You know, I've been watching you for 3 years now. I see how hard you work, how much you've sacrificed for those kids. Don't let the small minds in this town make you forget who you really are. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes but blinked them back quickly. She couldn't afford to cry at work. She couldn't afford to break down at all, really. Too many people depended on her to keep it together. As she poured Mrs. Peterson's coffee and took her order, Maya made a silent promise to herself. Someday, somehow, she was going to prove to everyone, including herself, that she was more than just a pretty face, more than just someone's temporary companion, more than the cruel nickname they'd given her. She just had no idea how that was going to happen. The winter storm hit harder than anyone expected. Maya pulled her old jacket tighter as she hurried across the library parking lot, her arms full of books for Amy's science project. The wind was so strong it nearly knocked her over, and snow was falling so thick she could barely see her car. Maya rarely came to the library herself. Most people assumed she wasn't much of a reader, which was just another wrong thing they believed about her. The truth was, she loved books but never had time to enjoy them. Between work and taking care of Amy and Tom, reading for pleasure felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. But Amy needed these specific books for her report on animal behavior, and Maya would do anything to help her sister succeed in school. Amy was brilliant, much smarter than Maya had ever been, and she dreamed of becoming a veterinarian someday. Maya was determined to make sure Amy got every opportunity she herself had missed. When Maya reached her car, her heart sank. The old Honda Civic looked even more beaten up than usual, covered in snow and ice. She'd been having trouble with it for weeks, but car repairs cost money she didn't have. She'd been hoping it would last through winter, but now, as she turned the key and heard nothing but clicking sounds, she knew her luck had run out. "Come on, please start," she whispered, trying the key again. Nothing. The engine was completely dead. Maya sat in the cold car for a moment, feeling overwhelmed. She had to get home to make dinner for Amy and Tom. She had to be back at work early tomorrow morning, and now she was stuck in a snowstorm with no way to get anywhere. She pulled out her phone to call for help, but who could she call? She didn't have money for a tow truck, and most of the people she knew would just see this as another example of how her life was always falling apart. "Excuse me, are you having car trouble?" Maya looked up to see a man approaching her car. He was probably around 30, wearing a thick winter coat and carrying an umbrella that was doing very little good in the strong wind. She'd seen him around town a few times but didn't know who he was. Maya's first instinct was suspicion. In her experience, when men offered to help her, they usually wanted something in return. She rolled down her window just a crack. "My car won't start," she said carefully. "I'm Alex," the man said, raising his voice over the wind. "I work at the library. I saw you struggling and thought maybe I could help. Do you think it's the battery?" There was something different about the way he spoke to her. He wasn't looking at her the way most men did, like he was sizing her up. His eyes were focused on her face, and he seemed genuinely concerned about her situation. "I think so," Maya said. "It's been having problems for a while. I have jumper cables in my car. Would you like me to try jumping it?" Maya hesitated. She'd learned to be careful about accepting help from strangers, especially male strangers. But the snow was getting worse, and she was running out of options. "Okay," she said finally. "Thank you." Alex went to get his car, and Maya watched him through her windshield. He moved quickly but carefully in the snow, and when he pulled up beside her car, he immediately got out to connect the cables. He didn't ask her to get out and stand in the cold while he worked. He didn't make her feel like she owed him anything. While they waited for her battery to charge, Alex knocked on her window. "Those are some interesting books you have there," he said, nodding toward the pile on her passenger seat. Maya glanced at the books about animal behavior and genetics. "They're for my sister's school project. She wants to study animals in college." "That's wonderful. Is she interested in any particular field? Wildlife conservation? Veterinary medicine?" Maya was surprised by the question. Most people in town knew Amy was smart, but they never asked detailed questions about her interests or plans for the future. "She wants to be a vet," Maya said. "She's always been good with animals, Even when she was little, she'd rescue hurt birds and try to take care of them. That's a challenging field, but very rewarding. These books she chose show she's serious about understanding the science behind animal behavior. That's exactly the kind of preparation that will help her in veterinary school. Maya stared at him. No one had ever talked to her about Amy's education in such detail. No one had ever taken her sister's dreams this seriously. Alex tried to start Maya's car, but it still wouldn't turn over. The battery wasn't the problem after all. "I'm sorry," he said, looking genuinely disappointed. "It might be the starter, or something with the electrical system. In this weather, it's hard to tell." Maya felt her heart sink again. She couldn't afford major car repairs, and without a car, she couldn't get to work. "I can give you a ride home if you'd like," Alex offered. It's not safe to walk in this storm. Every warning bell in Maya's head was ringing. She didn't know this man. Getting into his car could be dangerous, but the snow was falling even harder now and the temperature was dropping fast. "I live on Oak Street," she said, testing him. If he had bad intentions, he might suggest going somewhere else first. "I know where that is. It's not far from here. Let me just put away these cables and I'll drive you home." During the 20-minute drive through the snowy streets, something unexpected happened. Alex started talking to her about the books Amy had chosen, about the local school system, about education in general. He didn't ask personal questions about Maya's life or make any comments about her appearance. Instead, he talked to her like she had intelligent thoughts and opinions worth hearing. When she mentioned that Amy was worried about affording college, he told her about scholarship programs she'd never heard of. When she said she wished the high school had better science equipment, he listened carefully and asked thoughtful questions. For the first time in years, Maya found herself in a conversation that made her think, that challenged her mind instead of just passing time. She realized how much she'd missed this kind of intellectual connection. When they reached her house, Alex helped her carry the books to her front door. "I hope your sister does well on her project," he said. "And I hope you can get your car fixed soon. If you need any more books from the library, I'd be happy to help you find them." As Maya watched him drive away, she felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Someone had treated her with respect, had seen her as more than just a pretty face or a source of gossip. For 20 minutes, she'd felt like her thoughts and opinions mattered. She had no idea that this chance encounter would change everything. Maya didn't expect to see Alex again, but life in a small town has a way of bringing people together. 3 days after the snowstorm, she was wiping down tables during the slow afternoon shift when he walked into the diner. Her heart did a little jump, though she tried to tell herself it was just surprise. "Hi, Maya," he said, sliding into a booth near the window. "How did your sister's project turn out?" She was amazed that he remembered her name and Amy's assignment. Most people forgot details like that within hours of hearing them. "She got an A," Maya said, unable to hide her smile. "The teacher said it was one of the best reports she'd ever seen." "That's wonderful. Amy must be very dedicated to her studies." Maya brought him coffee and a menu, expecting him to order quickly and leave like most customers did. Instead, Alex seemed in no hurry. He asked about Amy's other classes, about whether she was getting the support she needed for her college plans. "She's taking advanced biology next year," Maya found herself saying. "The guidance counselor thinks she should take chemistry too, but I'm worried it might be too much pressure." "Actually, chemistry would be really valuable for veterinary school," Alex said thoughtfully. "But you're right to be concerned about pressure. Has anyone talked to her about study techniques for advanced sciences?" Maya shook her head. She wanted to support Amy's education, but sometimes she felt lost when it came to academic advice. She'd never finished college herself, so how could she guide someone who was aiming so much higher? "I studied chemistry in college," Alex said. "If Amy ever needs help or if she wants to talk to someone about what to expect, I'd be happy to meet with her." Maya stared at him. "You'd do that?" "Of course. Bright kids like Amy should have all the support they can get." Over the following weeks, Alex became a regular at the diner. He always came during Maya's afternoon shift, always sat in the same booth, and always treated her like her opinions mattered. He brought books he thought she might enjoy, and left them on the counter with little notes about why he'd chosen them. "I thought you might like this one," He'd say about a novel on teaching or child development. The author has some interesting ideas about learning. Maya started taking the books home and reading them after Amy and Tom went to bed. It had been so long since she'd read for pleasure that she'd forgotten how much she enjoyed it. These weren't romance novels or celebrity magazines like people might expect her to read. These were serious books about education, psychology, and social issues. When Alex asked what she thought about them, Maya was surprised by how much she had to say. She found herself expressing opinions she didn't even know she had, analyzing ideas in ways that felt natural but sophisticated. "You have a really intuitive understanding of how people learn," Alex told her one afternoon. "Have you ever thought about going back to school?" Maya laughed, but not in a happy way. "I barely finished high school. College isn't for people like me." "What do you mean, people like you?" The question caught her off guard. She'd never had to explain what seemed obvious to everyone in town. "You know," she said uncomfortably, "I work at a diner. I never traveled anywhere or did anything important. I'm not smart enough for college." Alex was quiet for a long moment. "Maya, in the past month you've discussed complex psychological theories, analyzed educational policies, and made connections between different ideas that impressed me. You're raising 2 teenagers successfully while working full-time. You're one of the most intelligent people I've talked to in years." Maya felt tears starting in her eyes and quickly looked away. No one had ever called her intelligent before. Pretty, yes. Nice sometimes, but never intelligent. "The library is starting an adult education program," Alex continued gently. "Basic, literacy, GED preparation, college readiness courses. I've been asked to coordinate it, but I think it would be much more effective if someone from the community was involved. Someone who understands what people here actually need." "You want me to help?" Maya asked, hardly believing what she was hearing. "I want you to co-coordinate it with me. You'd be perfect for it." Before Maya could respond, the diner door opened, with more force than necessary. Jake, her most recent ex-boyfriend, strutted in with 2 of his friends. Maya's stomach clenched. Jake had been calling her for weeks, wanting to get back together, and she'd been avoiding him. "Well, well," Jake said loudly enough for everyone in the diner to hear. "Look who's found herself a new friend." Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She glanced at Alex, expecting to see him looking uncomfortable or preparing to leave. Instead, he just sat calmly sipping his coffee. "Maya's a little busy right now, buddy," Jake continued, his voice getting nastier. "But don't worry, she'll make time for you later. That's what she does. She keeps men warm, if you know what I mean." The cruel nickname hung in the air like poison. Maya wanted to disappear. She wanted to run to the back room and hide until Jake left. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of. Now Alex would see her the way everyone else did, but Alex didn't get up to leave. Instead, he stood up slowly, his expression serious but not angry. "Excuse me," he said to Jake in a calm, clear voice. "I don't think we've been introduced. I'm Alex, and I work with Maya on community education projects." Jake laughed mockingly. "Community education? That's what they're calling it now?" "Yes," Alex said, his voice getting stronger. "Maya is one of the most capable and intelligent people I know. She's helping coordinate programs to improve literacy and educational opportunities in this town. It's important work that requires real skill and dedication." The diner had gone completely quiet. Everyone was watching this confrontation, waiting to see what would happen next. Jake looked confused, like he couldn't process what Alex was saying. "You don't know her like I do, man. Trust me, Maya's got her talents, but thinking isn't one of them." Maya felt like she might die of shame right there on the spot. But then Alex did something that changed everything. "Actually," he said, his voice steady and confident, "I've spent considerable time discussing complex educational and social issues with Maya. Her insights have been invaluable to our planning process. She has a natural understanding of community needs and learning processes that would be hard to find anywhere." He paused, looking directly at Jake. "It sounds like you might not have taken the time to really get to know her." Jake's face turned red, but for once in his life he seemed to have nothing to say. He muttered something under his breath and left the diner with his friends. Maya stood frozen behind the counter, hardly able to believe what had just happened. Someone had stood up for her. Not just defended her, but praised her intelligence, in front of the whole town. When Alex sat back down, he looked at Maya with gentle eyes. "I meant every word I said. I hope you'll think about the education program. This community needs someone like you." For the first time in years, Maya began to think that maybe, just maybe, she was capable of more than she'd ever imagined. 8 months had passed since that embarrassing day when Jake tried to humiliate Maya in front of everyone. Those 8 months changed everything about how Maya saw herself and how others saw her too. The adult education program at the library had become the most successful community project the town had seen in years. Maya and Alex worked together every Tuesday and Thursday evening, helping adults learn to read better, prepare for their high school equivalency tests, and gain skills for better jobs. Maya discovered she had a natural gift for teaching. She could explain things in ways that made sense to people who had struggled in school their whole lives. She understood their fears and doubts because she'd felt them herself. When a 40-year-old construction worker was embarrassed about not being able to read well, Maya knew exactly what to say to make him feel comfortable. "I dropped out of college," she'd tell new students. "I thought I wasn't smart enough to learn." But intelligence isn't about how much school you finished. It's about being willing to keep trying. The program grew from 5 students to over 30. People who had never set foot in the library before were coming regularly. Maya started arriving early to set up chairs and staying late to lock up. She created simple workbooks and organized study groups. Without realizing it, she was doing everything a professional educator would do. Amy was now 16 and thriving in her advanced classes. She'd taken Alex's advice about chemistry and was doing well, though it was challenging. Tom, at 14, was showing interest in computers and technology. Both kids were proud of their sister's work at the library, though Maya still worried. She wasn't doing enough for them. "Maya, you've changed so much this year," Amy said one evening while they were making dinner together. "You seem happier, more confident." It was true. Maya felt different. She woke up each morning looking forward to her work, both at the diner and at the library. She had purpose beyond just surviving and paying bills. She was making a real difference in people's lives. But she never expected what Alex was about to tell her. It was a Thursday evening in late spring. They had just finished their weekly education session and were putting away chairs in the library meeting room. Most of the students had gone home chatting excitedly about their progress. "Maya," Alex said, his voice sounding more serious than usual. "I got some news today that I want to share with you." Maya looked up from stacking chairs. "What kind of news?" "The state education department heard about our program. They're so impressed with the results that they want to fund a permanent community literacy center here." Maya's eyes widened. "That's amazing. You must be so proud." "It's not just me, Maya. This program succeeded because of you. Your understanding of what people need, your teaching ability, your connection with the community, that's what made the difference." Maya felt a warm glow of pride, but she also felt sad. If the state was taking over the program, would there still be a place for her? "So what happens now?" she asked. Alex took a deep breath. "They want to hire a director for the new center, someone with education credentials and community connections, someone who understands both the academic side and the real-world challenges people face." "That sounds perfect for you," Maya said, though her heart was sinking. She'd gotten used to being part of something important, and now it seemed like it was ending. "Maya," Alex said gently, "they want to hire both of us, you as program director and me as educational coordinator." Maya stared at him. "Both of us?" "The position requires a college degree, but they're willing to hire you conditionally while you complete your education. They'll pay for your tuition and give you a full-time salary while you take classes." Maya sat down heavily in one of the chairs she'd been stacking. "You're joking." "I'm completely serious. Maya, you've been doing this work for months without any formal training, and you're better at it than people with advanced degrees. They want to invest in you because they can see what I've seen all along. You have exceptional talent for this." Maya's mind was racing. A real job, not just waiting tables but doing work that mattered. College classes, the education she'd always dreamed of. A chance to become the person she'd always thought was impossible. But the fear was overwhelming too. I can't do this, Alex. I'm not college material. I barely made it through high school. Maya, look at what you've accomplished in the last 8 months. You've taught reading to adults who hadn't picked up a book in 20 years. You've helped people get their high school diplomas who thought it was impossible. You've created lesson plans and teaching materials that work better than anything I learned in graduate school. But that's different. That's just common sense. No, Maya, that's professional expertise. That's exactly what makes someone qualified for this job. Maya stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot where her car had broken down all those months ago. That night felt like a lifetime ago. What about Amy and Tom? I can't abandon them to chase some dream. Amy's going to college in 2 years. Tom's becoming more independent. You've raised them well, Maya. Now it's time to invest in yourself too. What if I fail? What if I can't handle college classes? What if everyone realizes I'm not as smart as you think I am? Alex walked over to stand beside her. What if you succeed? What if you discover you're even more capable than you realize? What if this is exactly what you're meant to do? Maya was quiet for a long time, watching cars drive past on the street outside. Her whole life, people had told her what she couldn't do, what she wasn't good enough for. Now someone was telling her she could do anything. The job starts in September, Alex said softly. You don't have to decide right now, but I want you to think about it. Really think about it. That night, Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Amy and Tom were asleep and the house was quiet except for the old refrigerator humming in the kitchen. She thought about all the students who had learned to read because she'd believed in them. She thought about the pride in their eyes when they passed their tests or got better jobs. Maybe it was time to believe in herself the same way. The next morning, Maya called Alex before she lost her nerve. I want to do it, she said, as soon as he answered the phone. I want to take the job. I'm scared, but I want to try. She could hear the smile in his voice when he responded. Maya, this is going to be the best decision you've ever made. As Maya hung up the phone, she looked around the small house where she'd been surviving for the past 3 years. Soon she might be living instead of just surviving. The thought was terrifying and exciting at the same time. She had no idea that this decision would transform not just her career, but her entire understanding of who she could become. 2 years later, Maya stood at the podium of the county education conference, looking out at an audience of teachers, administrators, and community leaders from across the region. Her hands were slightly shaky, but her voice was steady as she began to speak. Good morning. My name is Maya, and I'm the director of the Riverside Community Literacy Center. 3 years ago, I was a high school dropout working at a diner, convinced that education wasn't meant for people like me. The audience was completely quiet, listening to every word. Today, I want to talk about something that affects every community, represented in this room. It's about the potential we miss when we judge people by their circumstances instead of their capabilities. Maya had come so far from that scared young woman who used to hide behind the diner counter. She'd completed her bachelor's degree in adult education through evening and online classes while running the literacy center full-time. It hadn't been easy. There were nights when she fell asleep over textbooks, mornings when she questioned whether she could really do this. But Alex had been right. She was more capable than she'd ever imagined. The literacy center now served over 200 adults each year. Maya had expanded the program to include job training, computer skills, and English classes for immigrants. She'd written grants that brought in funding from state and federal sources. She'd been invited to speak at conferences like this one across 3 different states. In our first year, we helped 87 adults complete their high school equivalency, but more importantly, we helped them see themselves differently. We helped them understand that their life experiences had value, that their struggles had taught them resilience and problem-solving skills that couldn't be learned in any classroom. Maya paused and looked out at the crowd. In the 3rd row, she could see Alex smiling at her with pride. Their relationship had grown deeper over the past 2 years, built on mutual respect and shared passion for their work. When they finally became romantic partners, it felt natural and right in a way Maya had never experienced before. I want to share a story about one of our students. Lisa came to us at age 35. She'd been told her whole life that she wasn't smart enough for school. She worked cleaning offices at night and took care of her elderly mother during the day. People looked at her and saw someone who would never amount to much. Maya thought about Lisa, who reminded her so much of herself. Dismissed by others, but full of untapped potential. Lisa struggled with reading at first. She was embarrassed and wanted to quit several times. But we worked with her at her own pace, celebrating small victories. We helped her see that intelligence comes in many forms, and that her life experience had taught her valuable lessons about dedication, responsibility, and caring for others. The audience was completely engaged now. Maya could see people leaning forward in their seats. Last month, Lisa graduated from community college with honors. She's now studying to become a registered nurse. But more than that, she's become a mentor in our program, helping other women who remind her of who she used to be. Maya smiled, thinking about Lisa's transformation and how it mirrored her own journey. The point of Lisa's story isn't just that she succeeded academically. It's that she learned to see herself differently. And when we see ourselves differently, we change not just our own lives, but the lives of everyone around us. Amy was now 18 and in her first year of college, studying veterinary medicine just as she'd always dreamed. She was doing well, and Maya was incredibly proud of how focused and determined her sister had become. Tom, at 16, was excelling in his computer programming classes and talking about studying software engineering. Both of her siblings had watched Maya's transformation and learned something important about perseverance and self-belief. They'd seen that it's never too late to chase your dreams, that circumstances don't have to define your future. I used to believe that some people were meant for education and success, and others weren't. I thought I was in the second group. It took someone believing in me before I could believe in myself. Maya glanced at Alex again. He hadn't saved her. She'd saved herself. But he'd created the space for her to discover who she really was underneath all the labels and assumptions. Now I know that every person has potential that might not be obvious at first glance. Our job as educators isn't just to teach skills. It's to help people discover their own capabilities and learn to value their own intelligence. After her speech, Maya was surrounded by people wanting to know more about the Literacy Center, wanting to start similar programs in their own communities. Several offered her jobs with higher salaries and more prestige, but Maya wasn't interested. This work, this community, this life she'd built, it felt right in a way that nothing else ever had. That evening, Maya and Alex sat on the porch of the small house she still called home, even though she could afford something bigger now. Amy was away at college and Tom was at a friend's house working on a computer project. "I'm proud of you," Alex said, taking her hand. "Not just for the speech today, but for everything you've built." Maya squeezed his hand. "You know what's funny? People used to call me a bed warmer, like it was the worst thing they could say about someone. Like that was all I'd ever be good for." "Do you ever think about those people now?" Maya considered the question. "Sometimes, but mostly I feel sorry for them. They were so focused on judging others that they missed seeing what was really there." A few days later, Maya was working late at the Literacy Center when she heard a soft knock on her office door. She looked up to see a young woman, probably in her early 20s, standing nervously in the doorway. "Excuse me," the woman said. "Are you Maya, the director?" "Yes. Come in. How can I help you?" The young woman sat down across from Maya's desk, fidgeting with her purse. "My name is Jessica. I heard you speak at the community college last week about your program." Maya nodded encouragingly. "I wanted to ask about classes, but I'm not sure I'm smart enough. I mean, I know people think I'm not very bright. I've made some mistakes in my life and people judge me for them." Maya looked at Jessica and saw herself, from 4 years ago, uncertain, afraid, convinced that other people's opinions defined her worth. "Jessica," Maya said gently, "let me tell you something I wish someone had told me when I was your age. What other people think about you matters much less than what you think about yourself. And what you think about yourself can change. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. But what if I try and fail? What if everyone's right about me? Maya came around her desk and sat in the chair next to Jessica. What if you try and succeed? What if you discover you're capable of more than you ever imagined? What if this is the beginning of a completely different life? As Maya talked with Jessica about the program and her goals, she felt the same sense of purpose that had driven her for the past 2 years. This was her calling, not just teaching literacy, but helping people rewrite the stories they told about themselves. Later that evening, as Maya locked up the center and walked to her car, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. From a woman dismissed as a bedwarmer to someone who was helping others transform their lives. The cruel nickname that had once hurt so much now seemed like it belonged to a different person entirely. Maya had learned the most important lesson of all. We are not defined by other people's limited imagination of who we can be. We are defined by our willingness to grow, to learn, and to keep becoming the person we're meant to be. And Maya was just getting started.